want to tell you a little story about the first time I saw the Rolling Stones. Now, it was the Tattoo You tour, and the Stones ended their tour that year, and I believe that was 1981. They ended the tour at the Hampton Coliseum, the same place where I had seen Elvis, same place I had seen Dolly Parton, Billy Joel, a few other acts. But I was big time in the Stones, especially on the Some Girls album. Man, I used to wear that album out. And when the Tattoo You album came out, I bought that album, and that was a solid album as well. But not as good as the Some Girls album, but maybe we'll get into that on another day. So, I got word, that the Stones were coming to Hampton Coliseum. And I can remember I was going to Catholic school at the time, and I was in the one class that I couldn't stand the most. It was Mrs. Stone. I believe that's the class I was in, and she was a taskmaster and not a very popular teacher. And I always felt, at least me and my friends always felt, that she just did not have a good attitude. But, the Stones were coming to town, and I was a huge, Rolling Stones fan at that time. And all of a sudden, I look into the side window of the classroom, and my mom, who had just was so excited that she'd gotten these Stones tickets, she shows up at the window of the classroom. I'm sitting in my class, and I see her at the window waving these tickets, and I'm like, what is going on? And the teacher says, you can go speak to your mother real quick. And I go to the window, she says, I got Stones tickets. And it was, she got I don't know, maybe 8 tickets or 10 tickets. It was enough that it was me, and my good friend Sid Bingley, and I believe Mark Welch and John O'Shea, and maybe David Metler. I think David Metler went with us as well. And then my mom and my stepdad, John, we all had tickets to go see the Stones at the Hampton Coliseum. Now, that would be a good enough story as it is. And as we were to find out, the Rolling Stones were staying right down the road from my house at the Kingsmill Hilton. Now, the Kingsmill Hilton, when that was built in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I'm from a really small town, so there was not a lot to do there, but the Kingsmill Hilton had put a little game area with Pac-Man and Galaga and a few pinball machines, and that was open. And then it had a lounge where one of my guitar teachers was playing in the lounge there. It had a circular stage and lights, and man, I just thought that was the greatest place in the world. So I used to hang out. I used to drive over there just to go play video games and then listen to the band. We could go at night and do that, right? And so we found out that the Rolling Stones were staying there. We found out first from my girlfriend at the time that was lived in Kingsmill, right? And she said, Mick Jagger's at the Kingsmill Hilton. The whole band's there, and she had pictures. She brought pictures to me and everything. And she had a picture of Mick Jagger on the racquetball court, and and there was a court that I played on. It was it was incredible. And it was holy crap, the Rolling Stones are here. So me and my friend, David Metler, we were both guitar players. And he had this beautiful, I believe it was a white Fender hardtail Strat. And man, that was the best guitar I'd ever put in my hands at that time. That thing was incredible. And I believe I've talked to Dave since then, and he still has that guitar. So, bro, that's a good one. It is a good one. I mean, it had that Hendrix vibe, it had the big headstock, and man, super cool guitar. So he had that, and I believe it was in one of those black Fender molded cases with the letters, Fender kind of imprinted on the side. I think that's what the case looked like. And I had my Gibson The Paul, made out of walnut, just a kind of a stripped down bare guitar, but it was a good solid guitar, great guitar for me at the time. And so we cooked up the plan that, hey, let's go down to the Kingsmill Hilton. Now, I don't know how this plan got instigated, but Dave was, I think, a year or two older than me, and so he was able to drive. And we cooked up the idea that we were going to go down to the Kingsmill Hilton and sneak up to wherever the Stones were staying, and with our guitars, and we were going to go jam with the Stones, bro. We were going to go jamming with the Stones. It's like Spicoli. I'm going to fly over to London, and I'm going to jam with the Stones, bro. And so we get to the hotel, and we've got our cases, but, it's like certain hallways were like closed off. Now, a side note, I have read this, that Ian Stewart, who was a long-time piano player, he was a piano player on this tour with Ian McLagan, but he was also a long-time road manager of the Stones, so he would be on stage playing piano, but he was in charge of the bookings. And I've heard Keith Richards complain that, Stu always puts us in these out-of-the-way hotels because they're near a golf course. Well, Kingsmill has an epic, at the time, nicest in the area golf course. And I think there was it Curtis Strange lived in Kingsmill. So, it was known among golf aficionados. And so Stu had, done his research of where to put up the Stones. And instead of putting them up in, Newport News or Hampton or somewhere where, or by the beach, where the band would have something to do, he decided he was going to put them up at Kingsmill Hilton, and he was going to play himself some golf, right? So there they are. That's the reason why they stayed in Williamsburg, and the show was all the way in Hampton, which is, probably about a 45-minute drive. So Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Ron Wood and Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts, these Stones, are staying in my hometown, and we cook up the plan to take our guitars down there, and we're to go jam with the Stones, right? So we get to the hotel, and we start noticing there's like security posted up, and we're not going to be able to just waltz down the hallway and go up to the top floor. So we're like, what do we do? And it's like, I don't know, man. What do you think? So we go outside, and we see a little side door, and we go in that side door, and we get to the elevator, and we're like, we had heard, I think they were on the top floor, and they had taken up the entire top floor. And so we were able to go in a side door and walk in with our guitars, and we're in this elevator, and we're like, dude, we made it. We're going to jam with the Stones. And we get in the elevator, and we go up to the top floor, and the door opens, and the security guy's there. He goes, and we're like, okay. And we kind of sheepishly sink back into the elevator and push the floor down. And so the plan was foiled, but we got so close. Now, I can't imagine now, today, what Keith Richards and Ron Wood were probably up to in that hotel room around 1981. I don't think we would have been fit into those plans at that time to just jam with some kids. I'm sure they might have had some extracurricular activities going on, probably a lot more advanced than we would be willing to participate. But needless to say, we did make it up to the floor, right? And I did go back another time, and I did see Ian Stewart in the lobby of the hotel. Went back, I think, with my friend Jeff Zamora, and I think Jeff went with us to the Stones concert as well. We saw Ian Stewart in the hallway, and we were just elated because Jeff was a big fan of boogie woogie piano, and Stu, as they called him, was a great boogie woogie piano player in the English tradition. So that didn't happen, but we did go to I believe it was the first night of of that tour. They played, it was like a Friday and a Saturday, and then their tour was over. And that was the famous night where a fan jumps on stage and starts running towards Mick and Keith, and Keith takes off his black Telecaster Deluxe and just beams the guy in the head. I mean, we saw the whole thing. I was like, dude. And the guy get hit in the head and just kind of falls off the stage or whatever. But man, it was an epic concert. I was just blown away by how much energy Mick Jagger had at the time. Now that I know, and I'm an adult, I know, well, there was, once again, it was 1981, I believe, and there were probably some refreshments backstage that might have aided in their, shall we say, enthusiastic performance. But needless to say, Ron Wood, I think, during this tour was in pretty rough shape. I don't think he played his best work. I think his best work is on the live album, Love You Live. In particular, his solo on You Can't Always Get What You Want. That is an excellent guitar solo, and I think it's some of his best work with the Stones. And I know it would be an unpopular opinion, but I like to listen to Love You Live more than any of the other Rolling Stones live albums. I think it's just raw, and I think it just captures the energy and the sound of the crowd clapping along with the songs, and Jagger's being Jagger, and Keith's being Keith, and Ron's being Ron. I think that's the greatest Rolling Stones live album. But seeing the Rolling Stones at that was my first time seeing them. Now, over the years, I saw them many other times, but that was really the iconic moment. Mick with his football pants on, and he'd stick the microphone down his football pants and come out on the catwalk. And at one point, he came through the crowd, and he was literally about 3 rows away from us. We had good seats, kind of just straight back up on the first kind of level, a few rows up, and looking straight at the stage. So we had excellent seats. And Mick got in the cherry picker at one time, and he was just all over that stage. And it was something I'll always remember. But I'll always remember me and Dave Mettler with our guitar cases, my Gibson case and his Strat case, and us trying to sneak up to jam with the Stones. Man, I'll never forget that night.